Okay, here we go again. This is my reference. This is going to be a pretty wet on wet painting, but it's going to dry. I have altered, you can see my drawing here, I've altered things a bit. Compressed it a little bit this way, shifted trees around to make a more pleasing to my eye arrangement. So there's the reference. This is as simple as watercolor painting gets in a way, because I'm using aerial perspective. I wish I could show you the photo while I paint. If you're taking the course, you will, of course, see this photo in one of my videos. So you will get a chance to see it. Now, I'm saying this is as simple as it gets simply because I'm using a lot of aerial perspective to get ahead. Now, if you saw the photo up in this area, I mean, the sky is quite dull, and I'm going to try and put a little feature there that I often stick in. It's something I see a lot. You get a gap in the clouds, and you often get a kind of an area of the clouds lit. So I'm putting it here at an angle. This is complete fakery, in order to have a little bit of an opening in the clouds, and an area of brighter light. Now the sky is quite warm from my point of view, and I'm going to bring that warmth, a little bit of cool to it though, through. Soften some of the edges on this, but it is generally grey, so I'm mixing a little shell pink. It could be alizarin in with the blue. I use this a lot: cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, and yellow ochre. And I'm running it right over the mountains, and down in the cloud is very gray. I gotta get a nice cool blue gray, and again I'm just going with this alizarin crimson, yellow ochre, and cerulean blue. They're not primary colors, they're grayed down examples of the primary colors. I'm going to run that right through. I'm thinking about what I want light and what I want in shade, so to speak, again. And really everything is in shade. The only white I'm going to have is just this little bit here. But I'm thinking that on the water, there's lilies and stuff in there. You can see them, and they're creating kind of little white glints, light glints. They're not quite white, but I'm imagining, because I've got these lights here in the sky, which aren't in the original, I'm going to imagine that they're picking up light. The blue gets a little bit of blue in here. This is all fog in here, so I'm going to have to work that out. This is as simple as it gets, because basically I'm starting in the background and moving forward, from lighter to darker, as I get closer. So I can, this kind of exercise with, it's sort of the thing where you have hills going off into the background that are, now there's my lights on the water. That will be little lilies or something. You get a series of hills going off into the background and receding and gradually getting lighter as they go into the background. Of course, you start with the back one and work your way forward. And I did that exercise when I was a kid in high school. I must have been grade 11 or something. The artist David Blackwood, who lived in Port Hope where I was, he came and gave a workshop, after school workshop, and I bought beautiful paints, beautiful Winsor Newton paints. I'd never seen such a thing, Beautiful sable brushes. I've never seen such a thing since. I used to have a sable brush, but when I was in school, but I have not shelled out for one since. I'm going to take a quick picture of this actually. Oops. Shoot, this thing keeps shutting down. Darn. Where was I? I'm waiting for this to dry a little bit now. I'll mix I'll mix a color for the hills. Again, I'm going to this. I see the world as grey, particularly the natural world, especially when it's at its best. You know, I know in the summer, you know, with the sun up ahead, you get bright blue skies and all that kind of stuff. But you know, much of the day, much of the world, much of the year is actually quite a little bit of viridian in there. Is actually quite grey, and I see. Okay, I need to dry this a bit. One moment. A hairdryer can be handy, of course, as you can see. I'm going to put a little bit of cobalt green in there, and I'm going to simplify the hill. It's Mount Washington. I only get 15 minutes to bang this off, of course, and I don't know how much I'm going to get done. That's one of the hills I'm behind, and I'm just going to, now there's these beautiful wispy clouds here. That's a little cobalt green, but I'm going to grey it down with alizarin to create this hill here. Now they should, hopefully, I'll put a little bit of yellow ochre in as well. Ooh, keep fiddling with it until I get what I want. A little bit of blue as well. Okay, that might do. Now hopefully that's still, it's already dried. I dried it too much. I want some soft edges here. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, it's already dried too quickly. Holy snappers. So I'm going to have to re-wet this where I want these clouds. Wow, I hardly touched it with the dryer. I should have just waited. I'll dab some of this off. Now, again, I'll come in here and I'll lift a bit there. I'm trying to get these loose atmospheric hills, and I've reduced the detail even further. It is reduced because of the fog down in the valley. I'm gonna raise this up a bit. I may work back into this again while it's, see the separation there? This is something I actually pick colors for. You know, the cobalt green and the alizarin crimson are separating. It's as if you're getting a kind of a halo effect from, let's soften this up a bit, whoops. So there's another cloud over here. And now, as it comes down, there's striations in the mist. I'll lower it a bit more. Okay. I think I'll just add a little bit of blue up there. This may be a mistake. Okay. I need to soften in here. I'm going to leave that very light. So while I'm waiting for this top bit to dry, I'm not going to dry that with the dryer. I just dried it up too quickly. I'll soften this a bit. I'm going to leave that. So I've got these little separation going. You know, you often see that in mist. Actually, I'll add a little bit of hint of darker colors in there. Now, there is, as we come in here, we start to get some local color as it comes forward. And so I'm going to try, and this is a composed green. I'm just picking it because it looks like it needs to be really warmed up. I could use olive green, but it also needs graying down. Warmed up and grayed down. How do you do that? That'll do. A little dab will do, yeah. There it is. This is all the heather and stuff in the valley, on the plateau. There, and that's all I need for in there. Now, how's that doing? It might be drying, so what I might be able to do now is I get a loaded brush with water, take another photo here quickly. I'll start moving in. Way in the background I can see some very, very faint trees. Oh, it's still pretty wet. No. So I'm going to just run a few hints of trees faintly back there. That's all I'm going to suggest. Is some back here. Keep them wet. What the heck? There, that's all I'll do for. But then there's some trees in here. I'm going to have to let them dry a little bit. So, I'm going to, the water in here is reflecting the fog, the low-laying fog. So I'm going to keep it very close to the background color that I put down. And then there's kind of a gradation down as it's picking up the color of the trees and the hills. And there's also some reflections from the trees that I haven't painted yet. I have to kind of orchestrate this. I have to orchestrate when to do all that stuff. So I'll start a little bluer up above here. Whoa! And then get down into a deeper green. So there we go. There's those little sparkles there. You know, I could leave them. They look like little ripples on the water. I must be getting close to running out of time. If I hear the camera beep, I'll start it up again. got things are a little darker down in here. You know, my palette is so limited here. The natural world is so gray. It's lovely and gray. So there. Now there are some reflections. I'm going to let it dry a little bit before I chuck those in. But this is a little darker here. I'm treating you to my inner narrative, inner monologue, that's the word, of talking to myself. Instead I'm talking to you. I'm going to try and get a sense of a little bit of wet on wet there. These are reflections of the trees, which I will add to. There's some in there. And there's something going on here. A little bit of serendipity here. So there's some reflections on the water. Now, let's see if I can move into painting those farthest trees. A little bit of yellow ochre and green in it. I've adjusted the height of the trees a bit because